This is Bishop Michael Burbidge, and you are listening to the Walk Humbly Podcast.
Welcome to the Walk Humbly Podcast. I'm Billy Atwell, Chief Communications Officer for the Diocese and your co-host. If you haven't yet, please rate this podcast or write a review wherever you're listening to it. You can also sign up for our e-newsletter at arlingtondiocese.org/email. You can follow Bishop Burbidge on Twitter, more than 18,500 of you actually do right now, at Bishop Burbidge, where every day you can read a short reflection on the gospel of that day. You can also follow the Diocese on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you have a question for the podcast for Bishop Burbidge, you can send it to info@arlingtondiocese.org. Again, that's info@arlingtondiocese.org. I welcome your host, Bishop Burbidge. Bishop, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Billy, and certainly extending my prayers to our listeners and to their families as we persevere through this pandemic, asking God to keep them safe and healthy.
So we're starting to see a little bit of light at the end of this tunnel, I think. I know this has been a very busy week for you. Governor Northam announced that Northern Virginia would not follow the Phase 1 reopening that we talked about last week. The rest of the diocese would, but in that Northern Virginia region, that's not the case. That's what we're calling Phase 0, for instance, in Northern Virginia. They'll be maintaining the current protocols with some exceptions. So for those parishes that are outside of Northern Virginia, what will this weekend look like for them?
Right. And as you recall, last Friday when we sent out a video and announcements, we were so excited, surprised that what we did hear from the governor that the Commonwealth would begin entering into Phase 1 this weekend, and for churches that meant at a 50% maximum capacity with the required social distancing. So, as our faithful know, on Friday night we were out there saying, okay, we've been preparing for this. We have our guidelines and our protocols, and I am, given permission for, meaning this weekend, for masses to begin in those places that are able to do so. So permission, but not a mandate. And then, as you mentioned, on Monday of this week, we learned that certain jurisdictions, local officials in Northern Virginia, the reopening will not be until at least May the 29th. And as I think you said, the areas impacted are Arlington, Fairfax, Loudoun, and Prince William counties, and those cities located within, along with the city of Alexandria. So that is the majority of our parishes. So that means we had to shift gears. Right. And in consultation with my pastors and with the working group that's helping me into reintegration and our advisors, we decided that there are some parishes, close to 20 parishes, that are in the Phase 1 beginning today. And so if they're in Phase 1, that allows for public masses to be celebrated, provided all the guidelines and protocols are met, both especially the diocesan guidelines that we have shared with our pastors. And again, Billy, for our listeners, it's very important. I say they're permitted and not mandated. Right. So because there could be certain parish situations that are just not ready at this point, or due to the health situation of the priest or certain concerns, is not ready at this point. So no parish is mandated that you must begin this weekend if you're in that Phase 1, which is what I'm saying also to our parishioners. The dispensation from the obligation to attend Sunday Mass and Holy Obligation is in effect. It remains, because I don't want, if you're in Phase 1 county, and there's going to be Mass in your parish this weekend, I don't want anyone to feel obligated. You have to feel safe and secure. And I even said that the age group be 65 and above, or anyone with underlying health conditions should really, respectfully, I say, consider, not attending such public gatherings. This is the best advice that we're receiving. So the distinction here is permitted, not mandated. Things will be varying in our diocese from one parish to another because we are in different phases.
Yeah, and I've heard people describe it as we're not opening a floodgate, we're kind of trickling the faucets a bit, so we're easing into, what we've been accustomed to, and it seems like these protocols are obviously the requirements for being met. Now,
and Billy, just on that, the reason that the local officials in the Northern Virginia area said no, we're not ready yet, is because of the statistics of concern. And so it is very important to stress, even as we enter into phase one, we got to do this gradually and slowly and in a very, we have to be smart too. And I believe the protocols and guidelines that we're helping to give our pastors and parishes will be of great assistance.
Absolutely. And just a reminder for everybody, if you're in that Northern Virginia area, for instance, I live there, you still have the access also to the live stream of the Mass and to offer that spiritual communion each Sunday. I know for a lot of people that's been very powerful. It's not the same as going to Mass, but we're getting there. But I do encourage you to follow us on our YouTube channel, for instance. If you subscribe and hit the bell, you'll get an automatic notification. Or if you're on our email list, we email the Mass that Bishop Burbidge is celebrating that Sunday that morning, so you can get a quick reminder of that with an easy link to be able to access it. So again, arlingtondiocese.org/email, or go to our YouTube channel or Facebook page. You can watch those live streams also. And on that topic of Northern Virginia, Bishop, are there any options for the parishes that fall in those boundaries? They cannot have, the Mass even at 50% capacity. They're not able to do that. Is there something within the guidelines that you're offering that is within keeping with state officials, but isn't quite at the level of a celebration of the Mass?
Yeah, we had, once it was announced on Monday that, many of our parishes would not be in the phase one, I did hear from a number of our pastors and in those areas. And in fact, we had a webinar, Zoom call, whatever, with all of our pastors yesterday. And one of the proposals that our pastors gave, based on the fact that Bishop, as of Friday, we thought we were ready to go, and now on Monday we learned we're not. Is there anything we can do to offer some sort of hope that we are moving forward, restrictive of the fact if we're not yet in phase one and there's a 10 persons capacity, is there something we can do? I said, like what? And a number of our pastors came up with very, I thought, creative plans of saying that, maybe we could invite our people to participate by social distancing in the Mass, and then be available on our parish grounds, maybe outside, spread out very quickly, where 10 people at a time with the proper social distancing, so there really has to be people out there monitoring this, could at least receive Holy Communion with a short service outside of Mass. And there seemed to be such zeal in a very detailed way of some pastors thinking this through that I actually believe it could work. So for those parishes not yet in phase one in Northern Virginia, in some parishes, not all, in some parishes, that may be an option for them this weekend. So I encourage everyone to check with your local parishes and the announcements of what is being done this weekend. Now, there are some pastors who feel that, listen, if we're not in phase one yet, we want to continue the current protocols and prepare for the end of May when we can be together for the public celebration of Mass. Mm-hmm. And that is okay, too. And so, when you have such flexibility, some guidelines are across the board, especially respecting the capacity that's allowed, whether it's phase 0 or phase 1. When you allow for some flexibility, it's going to vary, even within our own diocese, even from one parish to another. And I'm just asking all of our faithful to be very respectful of that. If your parish is not having, if you're in phase 1 Mass, or if you're in phase 0, you're not having communion service, well then, try your best to accept that and continue to do what you're doing rather than going into other parishes, because we won't be able to handle that. Pastors won't be able to handle that. And to be respectful of the prudential judgments, that there's reasons, why certain pastors are able to go forward and certain pastors are not. So we are allowing for some flexibility there. We're not there yet, where every parish is doing the same thing in this phase.
Right. And for those who are curious in hearing more of some of these details, Bishop Burbidge has a statement. We have a statement on the diocesan website from Bishop Burbidge, as well as some resources for the lay faithful about what this will look like, whether you're in phase 0 or phase 1. There's some helpful resources there. And Bishop, you touched on this just a second ago, but you're encouraging people to only attend liturgies at your own parish, and this is so that parishes who might be holding a communion service or whatever it might be, that they don't become kind of overrun with people from various regions kind of convening there, right?
Right, for two reasons. Because if you're in phase 1, you're only allowed 50% of the
that's right.
maximum capacity anyway, and if you're having a communion service, you're in phase 0, you're only allowed 10 people at a time.
Right.
With the social distancing. So we don't want any parish at this stage to be overwhelmed.
Right.
God willing, come May 29th, we're all going to be in phase 1 and publicly celebrating Mass, God willing. But as we saw this past week, the statistics, the numbers, the facts of how the virus is spreading or not spreading will determine that.
Right. And just a reminder for everybody, whether you're above the age of 65 or have an underlying health condition or not, there's an inherent risk to any public gathering, whether you can go to Mass because you're in phase 1 or if you're in phase 0 and there's a communion service, there's an inherent risk. So just weigh that out and use your best discretion in determining if it's appropriate for you or your family to participate in what might be available.
Well, that was, Billy, that was actually a question that a reporter asked me last Saturday right after we made the announcement. Bishop, can you guarantee your parishioners that there's no risk if they come to church? And I said, I cannot. I can assure them that we are aware of what the guidelines are. We are asking and trying our best to follow them to, very, very strictly. And we're going to do everything, possible to keep those, those guidelines in place. We're very serious, very, very serious about that. I can assure people of that. But, just like anyone would tell you, there's an inherent risk if you go into the supermarket. There's an inherent risk if you go into a store or, even in a church right now. And, no one can guarantee that there's not a risk. And that's why I want people to do what is best for, their spiritual well-being, but also their physical well-being. And since we're in such an early stage of reintegration, I really lean towards recommending, do this slowly. It's only phase 1. And, we have to do what's best for yourself and for others. But we're moving gradually, and, I have great confidence in my pastors and great trust in their prudential judgments.
Excellent. Bishop, how about some good news? So one of the major events in June that we were all a little bit worried might be postponed, we were worried quite a bit, was priest ordination. Do you have any updates on that? I hope so.
Well, yeah. So the priesthood ordination is scheduled for June the 6th, right? So that means that in Arlington, beginning May 29th, we would be in phase 1. And so as of now, pray God that this remains the same. We will keep the ordination of our 5 new priests on that Saturday, June the 6th. Now it's going to be a little bit different than other ordinations because don't forget, we'll still be in phase 1.
Right.
So the cathedral can't be filled. It will be at 50% maximum capacity. And so some things, even within the liturgy, will look a little different. But the candidates ready to be ordained priests, I think they're willing to say, if Bishop, I don't care if it's just us and you, well, let's go.
That's right.
But we do believe we'll have at least a good representation within the cathedral that day. And the diaconate, the men to be ordained transitional deacons, was supposed to be the weekend before, and we moved that back to June 13th.
That's good. But that's so good that at least under the current plan, we're always on our toes, for the next change, but under the current plan, we'll be able to continue to hold those ordinations.
Under the current plan, we will have 5 new priests real soon, and pray God, everyone, that will be the case. And I'm telling you, assuring you, we will have 5 new, wonderful, wonderful priests, very holy, joyful, filled with the zeal and ready to come and as priests and serve our diocese. So please keep them in your prayers as they prepare for their ordination.
All right, so that'll be by invitation only because, again, in best case scenario, we'll be in phase 1. But just so everybody knows, we will live stream that ordination. So you'll be able to see that and see the joy of their face and see that sacrifice that they make of their lives to Christ. That'll be a beautiful moment for the whole diocese, and we'll make sure to live stream that on all of our platforms and channels. Bishop, any final thoughts, and if you would send us off with your blessing?
Right. No, Bill, I think you did remind everyone that, some of the documents that we have shared with the priests will also be made available to the lay faithful, right?
Yes. If you go to arlingtondiocese.org/coronavirus, that's kind of the main landing page where anything we've put out or produced, it's there in different categories and so on, faith and family, live streams, all that. As we go through this, arlingtondiocese.org/coronavirus is your home base for all of that.
Right. And, just a final thought, this beautiful month dedicated to our Blessed Mother, and we celebrated this week the memorial of her of Mary under the title of Our Lady of Fatima, recalling that the appearance to the shepherd children in Portugal, and, her message to them is very, very real and relevant to us and what our world needs now more than ever. Remember what Mary said. She said the message included to reform your life, to do penance, and to pray, especially the rosary. So, dear friends, as we continue to persevere through this pandemic, let us adhere that sound guidance of our Blessed Mother and seek her powerful intercession and the divine assistance of her Son, so that together we may walk humbly with our God.
Thank you for listening to the Walk Humbly podcast. Make sure you check out more episodes on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. You can follow me on Twitter at Bishop Burbidge, where I offer gospel reflections each morning and share photos and updates of what is going on in the Diocese of Arlington. Stay up to date with news, event information, and inspirational content by subscribing to our e-newsletter at arlingtondiocese.org.